Hello everyone, and welcome back to IRL Lore with me, the most discerning among men, who knows secret things, is the sun at noon, and always your humble docent, Segovax. Today, we will be looking at a text called Enmerkar and the Lord of Aratta. Analysis will be throughout. I guess let's just jump in. Enmerkar and the Lord of Aratta, translation. City, majestic, bull-bearing vigor, and great awesome splendor, Kulaba, lacuna. Breast of the storm, where destiny is determined, Unug, great mountain, in the midst of lacuna. There the evening meal of the great abode of An was set. In those days of yore, when the destinies were determined, the great princes allowed Unug Kulaba's Inana to lift its head high. Plenty and carp floods, and the rain which brings forth dappled barley were then increased in Unug Kulaba. Before the land of Dilmun yet existed, the Inana of Unug Kulaba was well founded, and the holy Jipar of Inana, in brick-built Kulaba, shone forth like the silver in the lode. Before lacuna carried, repeat several times. Before the commerce was practiced, before gold, silver, copper, tin, blocks of lapis lazuli, and mountain stones were brought down, together from their mountains, before lacuna bathed for the festival. Lacuna, time past. 2 lines missing. Lacuna was colorfully adorned, and lacuna, the holy place, was lacuna with flawless lapis lazuli. Its interior beautifully formed, like a white maize tree, bearing fruit. The Lord of Aratta placed on his head the golden crown for Inana. But he did not please her like the Lord of Kulaba. Aratta did not build for holy Inana, unlike the shrine Inana, the Jipar, the holy place, unlike brick-built Kulaba. So, right off, this text hits us with the clear context and setting. Mesopotamia, specifically the city of Uruk. More specifically, the great temple Inana in the central temple district of Uruk called Kulaba. The ancient author then flexes on the land of Dilmun for some reason, if possibly only to establish that Uruk, while not having the distinction of being a city that existed before and was refounded after the deluge, such as Shuruppak, Eridu, or Nippur, it still was a great city and older than the newer settlements overseas and across deserts in the west and south. Before the commerce was practiced is an interesting line, I think. As I understand it, the invention of currency, in the sense of an abstract means of exchange to replace the barter system, is widely accepted to have occurred sometime between 1000 to 2000 BC, somewhere in the Levant. I can't prove that, but I've also seen nothing to really dispute it either. And while the events of this tale are hard to precisely place chronologically, we're pretty safe in saying they occurred well before that, more like the 4000 to 8000 BC range. So I'd guess they must mean before any interstate trade was practiced at all. So, after the deluge, because there's a mortal king in Uruk, and maybe a little bit of time after, because Inanna seems to have primacy among the gods, or close to it, which was the state of affairs when everything went sideways later. But it can't be that long, because foreign relations and trade networks are only just beginning to be established. The author also flexes on Aratta for being rustic, while Uruk is cosmopolitan, and the latter pleases Inanna more. Anyway, continuing with the text. At that time, the Lord chosen by Inanna in her holy heart, from the bright mountain Enmerkar, son of Utu, made a plea to his sister, the lady who grants desires, holy Inanna. My sister, let Aratta fashion gold and silver skillfully on my behalf for Unug. Let them cut the flawless lapis lazuli from the blocks. Let them, lacuna, the translucence of the flawless lapis lazuli, lacuna, build a holy mountain in Unug. Let Aratta build a temple brought down from heaven, your place of worship, the shrine Inana. Let Aratta skillfully fashion the interior of the holy Jipar, your abode. May I, the radiant youth, may I be embraced there by you. Let Aratta submit beneath the yoke for Onug on my behalf. Let the people of Aratta bring down for me the mountain stones from their mountain. Build the great shrine for me. Erect the great abode for me. Make the great abode, the abode of the gods, famous for me. Make my me prosper in Kulaba. Make the Abzu grow for me like a holy mountain. Make Eridug gleam for me like the mountain range. Cause the Abzu shrine to shine forth for me like the silver in the lode. When in the Abzu I utter praise, when I bring the me from Eridug, when in lordship I am adorned with the crown like a purified shrine, when I place on my head the holy crown in Unug Kulaba, then may the lacuna of the great shrine bring me into the Japar, and may the lacuna of the Japar bring me into the great shrine. May the people marvel admiringly, and may Utu witness it in joy. Here now we see one of the great archetypes of human history, a Bronze Age Giga-Chad granted powers by a goddess. That's all. Line 65. Thereupon the splendor of Holy An, the Lady of the Mountains, the Wise, the goddess whose kohl is for Ama Akumgal Ana, Inana, the Lady of all the lands, called to Enmerkar, the son of Utu. Come, Enmerkar, I shall offer you advice. Let my counsel be heeded. I shall speak words to you. Let them be heard. Choose from the troops as a messenger one who is eloquent of speech and endowed with endurance. Where and to whom shall he carry the important message of wise Inana? Let him bring it up into the Zubi Mountains. Let him descend with it from the Zubi Mountains. Let Susin and the land of Ankan humbly salute Inana like tiny mice. In the great mountain ranges let the teeming multitudes grovel in the dust for her. Aratta shall submit beneath the yoke to Unug. The people of Aratta shall bring down the mountain stones from their mountains, and shall build the great shrine for you, and erect the great abode for you. Will cause the great abode, the abode of the gods, to shine forth for you. At this point, it repeats the previous Japar formula nearly verbatim. So I'm going to skip it. May the people marvel admiringly, and may Utu witness it in joy, because lacuna shall carry daily, when lacuna, in the evening cool lacuna, in the place of Dumuzid, where the ewes, kids, and lambs are numerous, the people of Aratta shall run around for you like the mountain sheep in the Akalag fields, the fields of Dumuzid. Rise like the sun over my holy breast. You are the jewel of my throat. Praise be to you, Enmerkar, son of Utu. So Inanna agrees, and mentions Dumuzi, a god of plenty, most famous for being Inanna's boyfriend, and also for being subsequently dead. There are a series of hymns lamenting the death of Dumuzi, which I may touch on during a future video covering the dead god and the major consequences of his murder. For now, I'll just say that this text seems sadly inconclusive as to whether it takes place before or after the death of Dumuzi. On one hand, it does not explicitly mention his fate, but on the other, there are also many clues in the apparent state of Aratta hinting at the sudden absence of a previously bountiful patron deity. Line 105. The Lord gave heed to the words of holy Inanna, and chose from the troops as a messenger one who was eloquent of speech and endowed with endurance, lacuna. To his messenger, lacuna. Where and to whom will he carry the important message of wise Inanna? You shall bring it up into the Zubi Mountains. You shall so it repeats the Ankan like tiny mice. And he said, Messenger, speak to the Lord of Aratta and say to him, Lest I make the people fly off from that city like a wild dove from its tree, lest I make them fly around like a bird over its well-founded nest, lest I requite them as if at a current market rate, lest I make it gather dust like an utterly destroyed city, lest, like a settlement cursed by Enki and utterly destroyed, I too utterly destroy Aratta, lest, like the devastation which swept destructively, and in whose wake Inanna arose, shrieked, and yelled aloud, I too wreak a sweeping devastation there. Let Aratta pack nuggets of gold in leather sacks, placing it alongside the Kumea ore, package up the precious metals, and load the packs on the donkeys of the mountains. And then may the junior Enlil of Sumer have them build for me, the Lord whom Nudimmud has chosen in his sacred heart, a mountain of a shining me, Have them make it luxuriant for me like a boxwood tree. Have them make its shining horns colorful for me, as when Utu comes forth from his chamber. Have them make its doorposts gleam brightly for me. Chant to him the holy song, the incantation sung in its chambers, the incantation of Nudimud. I kind of wish I knew the tempo or tune of this. On that day, when there is no snake, when there is no scorpion, when there is no hyena, when there is no lion, when there is neither dog nor wolf, when there is thus neither fear nor trembling, man has no rival. At such a time may the lands of Kuber and Hamazi, the many-tongued, and Sumer, the great mountain of the Me of magnificence, and Akkad, the land possessing all that is befitting, and the Martu land, resting in security, the whole universe, the well-guarded people, may they all address and leal together in a single language. For at that time, for the ambitious lords, for the ambitious princes, for the ambitious kings, Enki, for the ambitious lords, for the ambitious princes, for the ambitious kings. Repeats that several times. Enki, the lord of abundance and of steadfast decisions, the wise and knowing lord of the land, the expert of the gods, chosen for wisdom, the lord of Eridug, shall change the speech in their mouths, as many as he had placed there, and so the speech of mankind is truly one. So in that passage we have two more important mentions. The first is right there at the end, the reference to mankind speaking as one, and possibly related to Enmerkar's desire to build up a mountain of a shining me, but we'll get to that. To my knowledge, this is the closest thing we have to a Sumerian equivalent to the Tower of Babel story. And knowing the prolific nature of the Sumerians, there's a good chance that this reference belies another, much more in-depth tale describing how Enlil and Enki teamed up to demolish hubristic men, building a structure with which to reach heaven and prevent future attempts at that organizational scale. A tale which otherwise only survives thanks to being carried into the Western Semitic tradition by Abraham, such that we now see it in the Bible. And the second reference is that of the Martu land. These Amorites, as they're commonly called in English, would come to utterly dominate Mesopotamia following the collapse of Sumeria, reoccupying the abandoned cities barely a century after the catastrophes of roughly 2000 BC had bathed them in radiation, or whatever the, quote, evil wind mentioned in the various Lament for City texts is supposed to be. They appear to have been a problem even this far back, Martu land often seeming almost interchangeable with rebel land, and I feel I must point out that their ethnonym is frequently rendered in Sumerian as Marduk-ki. And Marduk just happened to be the name of the sudden new head of the pantheon when they took power in Babylon after the collapse. I feel I'm getting too far ahead of myself, and kind of being too all over the place, first mentioning the hymns to Dumuzi without elaborating, now mentioning the Martu land and these lament texts with similarly little elaboration. I guess for now, I should hold off on saying more other than, trust me, they'll be important later. Continuing, the text picks up for a bit, so I will let it relate the foreign correspondence. Line 156. The Lord added further instructions for the messenger going to the mountains, to Aratta. Messenger, by night drive on like the south wind, by day be up like the dew. The messenger gave heed to the words of his king. He journeyed by the starry night, and by day he traveled with Utu of heaven. Where and to whom will he carry the important message of Inana with its stinging tone? He brought it up into the Zubi mountains. He descended with it from the Zubi mountains. Susin and the land of Ankan humbly saluted Inana like tiny mice. In the great mountain ranges the teeming multitudes groveled in the dust for her. He traversed 5 mountains, 6 mountains, 7 mountains. He lifted his eyes as he approached Aratta. He stepped joyfully into the courtyard of Aratta. He made known the authority of his king. Openly he spoke out the words in his heart. The messenger transmitted the message to the lord of Aratta. Your father, my master, has sent me to you, the lord of Unug. The lord of Kulaba has sent me to you. What is it to me your master has spoken? What is it to me he has said? This is what my master has spoken. This is what he has said. My king, who from his birth has been fitted for the crown, the lord of Unug, the Sajkal snake living in Sumer, who pulverizes mountains. It says 2 alternatives have instead, who pulverizes heads like flour, the stag of the tall mountains, endowed with princely antlers, wild cow, kid pawing the holy soapwort with its hoof, whom the good cow had given birth to in the heart of the mountains. Enmerkar, son of Utu, has sent me to you. The Lord of Aratta speaks. What is it to me your master has spoken? What is it to me he has said? This is what my master has said. Lest I make the people fly off from that city like a wild dove from its tree. At this point, the messenger repeats Enmerkar's threat verbatim. Line 208. Say whatever you will say to me, and I shall announce that message in the shrine Inana as glad tidings to the scion of him with the glistening beard, whom his stalwart cow gave birth to in the mountain of the shining Me, who was reared on the soil of Aratta, who was given suck at the udder of the good cow, who is suited for office in Kulaba, the mountain of the great Me, to Enmerkar, the son of Utu, I shall repeat it in his Japar, fruitful as a flourishing maize tree, to my king, the lord of Kulaba. When he had spoken thus to him, the lord of Aratta replied, Messenger, speak to your king, to the lord of Kulaba, and say to him, It is I, the lord suited to purification, I, whom the huge heavenly neck stalk, the queen of heaven and earth, the goddess of the numerous Me, holy Inana, has brought to Aratta, the mountain of the shining Me. I, whom she has let bar the entrance of the mountains, as if with a great door. How then shall Aratta submit to Unug? Aratta's submission to Unug is out of the question. Say this to him. When he had spoken thus to him, the messenger replied to the lord of Aratta, the great queen of heaven who rides upon the awesome Me, dwelling on the peaks of the bright mountains, adorning the dais of the bright mountains, my lord and master, who is her servant, has had them install her as divine queen of Inana. Aratta shall bow, O Lord, in absolute submission. She has spoken to him thus, in brick-built Kulaba. Bingo. So you've probably noticed the references to a Me, and these Me's trees. I'm glad the electronic text corpus here leaves it untranslated rather than inserting something nonsensical but fitting with modern orthodoxy, as would seem to be the want of academia. Props to them. Right around line 230 there, the great queen of heaven who rides upon the awesome Me. Come on. You already know what I think they're referencing here. Vimana, the chariots of the gods, aircraft. And I think furthermore, all these events serve as evidence of the new political order of heaven and earth after the deluge. Enmerkar and this nameless lord of Aratta are both kings in their own right, but subordinate to a divine ruler above them. These mortal kings seem to have pretty broad latitude, free to be incompetent, behave cruelly to their subjects, and make war, albeit always under the gaze of their patron gods, who themselves were frequently capricious and at odds with each other. Anu, Enki, and Enlil are gone. Nanar still seems tangentially involved sometimes, but not particularly present. I'm just speculating here, but I've wondered before if his association with the moon in this period is because that's just where he was stationed, at their moon base. Which of course begs the question, then where is this alleged moon base? Why haven't we found it? And of course the broader question, where's the physical evidence on Earth? I don't have certain answers to these. On the first point, it's probable there's a lot which the powers that be aren't telling us, as I've made reference to before. And secondly, you're looking at it. This anthropologically recorded evidence is physical evidence, and furthermore, so is the anthropological. Simply by virtue of how wildly we outclass every other species on this planet, even other hominids right next to us in evolutionary history. I probably should have put my theory that Neanderthals and Denisovans represent what Homo habilis would have become, while Homo sapiens represent the populations descended from those tampered with by the Offworlders in the creation video. But anyways, there it is right now here. Sorry, off topic. Moving on. Line 236. Thereupon the Lord became depressed, Lord of Aratta, and deeply troubled. He had no answer. He was searching for an answer. He stared at his own feet, trying to find an answer. He found an answer and gave a cry. He bellowed the answer to the message like a bull to the messenger. Messenger! Speak to your king, the Lord of Kulaba, and say to him, this great mountain range is a maize tree grown high into the sky. Its roots form a net, and its branches are a snare. It may be a sparrow, but it has the talons of an Anzu bird, or of an eagle. The barrier of Inana is perfectly made, and is impenetrable. Those eagle talons make the blood of the enemy run from the bright mountain. Although in Aratta there is weeping, lacuna, water libations are offered, and flowers sprinkled on the mountain. Sacrifices and prayers are offered in obeisance. With fewer than 5 or 10 men, how can mobilized Unug proceed against the Zubi Mountains? Your king is heading in all haste against my military might, but I am equally eager for a contest. As the proverb goes, he who ignores a rival does not get to eat everything up, like the bull which ignores the bull at its side, but he who acknowledges a contest can be the outright winner, like the bull which acknowledges the bull at its side. Or does he reject me in this contest? Like Lacuna, can match no one. Or does he still reject me in this contest? Again, I have words to say to you, messenger. I have an artful proposal to make to you. Lacuna, may it get across to you. Lacuna, repeat this to your master, to the Lord of Kulaba. A lion, lying on its paws in Inana, a bull bellowing within it, within his japar, fruitful as a flourishing maize tree. The mountain range is a warrior, Lacuna high, like Utu going to his abode at twilight, like one from whose face blood drips, or like Nana, who is majestic in the high heavens, like him whose countenance shines with radiance, who, Lacuna, is like the woods in the mountains. Now, if Enmerkar just makes straight for the Lacuna of Aratta, for the benevolent protective spirit of the mountains of holy powers, for Aratta, which is like a bright crown of heaven, then I shall make my preeminence clear, and he need not pour barley into sacks, nor have it carted, nor have that barley carried into the settlements, nor place collectors over the laborers. But if he were actually to have barley poured into carrying nets, and to have it loaded into the pack-asses at whose sides reserved donkeys have been placed, and were to have it heaped up in a pile in the courtyard of Aratta, were he really to heap it up in such a manner, and were Inana the luxuriance of the grain pile, who is the illuminator of the lands, the ornament of the settlements, who adorns the 7 walls, who is the heroic lady fit for battle, who, as the heroine of the battleground, makes the troops dance the dance of Inana, were she actually to cast off Aratta as if to a carrion pursuing dog, then in that case I should submit to him. He would indeed have made me know his preeminence. Like the city, I, in my smallness, would submit to him. So say to him. Here is our first clue of the dire straits of Aratta. We aren't sure where it was located, but from context clues I'd guess somewhere in the mountains north or east of Sumeria, and, as referenced in the opening paragraph, it is considerably less developed than the lands of the plain. What this means is that Aratta is widely recognized for its abundance of forage and wild game. Though untamed, that wilderness contains immense resources, including the ore of the mountains, as well as this wildlife. Yet here the Lord wants sacks of grain. Why this need? Has his giving God, that previously protected and provided during hard times, suddenly ceased doing so? The text is not explicit, but something does seem inconsistent here. Line 294. After he had spoken thus to him, the Lord of Aratta made the messenger repeat the message just as he himself had said it. The messenger turned on his thigh like a wild cow, Like a sandfly, he went on his way in the morning calm. He set foot joyfully in brick-built Kulaba. The messenger rushed to the great courtyard, the courtyard of the throne room. He repeated it word perfect to his master, the Lord of Kulaba. He even bellowed at him like a bull, and Enmerkar listened to him like an ox driver. The king had him sit, Lacuna, at his right side. As he turned to his left side, to him, he said, "Does Aratta really understand the implications of his stratagem?" After day had broken, and Utu had risen, the sun god of the land lifted his head high. The king combined the Tigris with the Euphrates. He combined the Euphrates with the Tigris. Large vessels were placed in the open air, and he stood small vessels beside them, like lambs lying on the grass. Lacuna vessels were placed in the open air adjacent to them. Then the king, Enmerkar, the son of Utu, placed wide apart the Ekta vessels, which were of gold. Thereupon, the tablet, Lacuna, the pointed stylus of the assembly, the golden statue fashioned on a propitious day, beautiful Nanibgal, grown with a fair luxuriance, Nisaba, the lady of broad wisdom, opened for him her holy house of wisdom. He entered the palace of heaven, and became attentive. Then the Lord opened his mighty storehouse, and firmly set the great Lidga measure on the ground. The king removed his old barley from the other barley. He soaked the green malt all through with water, its lip, Lacuna, the herein plant. He narrowed the meshes for the carrying nets. He measured out in full the barley for the granary, adding for the teeth of locusts. He had it loaded on the pack-asses, at whose sides reserve donkeys were placed. The king, the lord of broad wisdom, the lord of Unug, the lord of Kulaba, dispatched them directly to Aratta. He made the people go on to Aratta on their own. Like ants out of crevices, again the Lord added instructions, for the messenger going to the mountains, to Aratta. "Messenger, speak to the Lord of Aratta, and say to him, the base of my scepter is the divine power of magnificence. Its crown provides a protective shade over Kulaba. Under its spreading branches, holy Inana refreshes herself in the shrine Iana. Let him snap off a splinter from it, and hold that in his hand. Let him hold it in his hand like a string of carnelian beads, a string of lapis lazuli beads. Let the Lord of Aratta bring that before me. So say to him." I have no idea the significance of any of these rituals, or the context of the boasts. But brother, let me tell you, I am into this stuff. Like, imagine how good it must feel to be king of Uruk, just chilling in the sun, mixing Tigris and Euphrates in golden vessels, dipping grains in libations, just like, yes, very wise. Must feel so good. I wish that was me. Line 347. After he had thus spoken to him, the messenger went on his way to Aratta. His feet raised the dust of the road, and he made little pebbles. And he made the little pebbles of the hills thud. Like a dragon prowling the desert, he was unopposed. After the messenger reached Aratta, the people of Aratta stepped forward to admire the pack-asses. In the courtyard of Aratta, the messenger measured out in full the barley for the granary, adding for the teeth of locusts. As if from the rains of heaven and the sunshine, Aratta was filled with abundance. As when the gods returned to their seats, Aratta's hunger was sated. The people of Aratta covered their fields with the water-soaked green malt. Afterwards, couriers and Katam officials, lacuna of 3 lines. The citizens of Aratta were mindful. He revealed the matter to Aratta. Attentively, in Aratta, from the hand, lacuna, his hand, lacuna, to the Lord of Unug. As for us, in the direst hunger, in our direst famine, let us prostrate ourselves before the Lord of Kulaba. So that was fast. Aratta is sated. Like when the gods return to their seats. You see what I mean about their need implying the absence of a patron deity? The people of Aratta are spreading sprouted seed over their fields, but then, just a short lacuna and a few lines later, Aratta is back in their direst hunger. I will now summarize and round out my analysis, as this is going to be my last interjection into the text. I'm still going to finish reading it for the sake of, completion, so spoiler warning, I guess. But then again, it did come out like millennia ago, so not my fault if you haven't read it yet. Aratta continues to deny Enmerkar, and the first ever internet argument continues. with the messenger becoming more and more tired of repeating messages and eventually demands an alternative solution for which writing is invented to relay the messages. Eventually, Aratta submits, and Enmerkar is granted what he needs to please Inana, which... good luck with that, bro. Just good luck. It's easy to overlook this text, as it lacks the flashy aerial combat, magical spells, or erotic violence of other texts. The Martu land is mentioned. Dumuzi may be doing a bad job administering his region due to a sudden case of being dead. And Inana is up to her usual tricks. But that's it, and not a lot else happens. It's comparatively dry and political. But I think it's still invaluable as a window into some of the first anthropologically recorded international relations, and hugely useful in providing insight as to the relationship of these new mortal polities with the divines after the flood. Anyhow, thank you for listening, and I hope you continue listening to the rest of the story if you so choose. But in the meantime, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and support me over on Patreon. Peace. Line 373. The eloquent elders wrung their hands in despair, leaning against the wall. Indeed, they were even placing their treasuries at the disposal of the Lord. His scepter, lacuna, in the palace. Lacuna, openly he spoke out the words of his heart. Your father, my master, sent me to you. Enmerkar, the son of Utu, sent me to you. What is it to me that your master has spoken? What is it to me what he has said? This is what my master has spoken. This is what he has said. The base of my scepter is the divine power of magnificence. Its crown provides a protective shade over Kulaba. Under its spreading branches, holy Inana refreshes herself in the shrine of Inana. Let him snap off a splinter from it and hold that in his hand. Let him hold it in his hand like a string of cornelian beads, a string of lapis lazuli beads. Let the Lord of Aratta bring that before me. So say to him. After he had spoken thus to him, for that reason he went inside the sanctuary, lacuna, and lay himself down in a fast. Day broke. He discussed the matter at length. He spoke unspeakable words. He circulated with this matter as if it were barley eaten by a donkey. And what did one speak to another? What did one say to another? What one said to another, so indeed it was. Messenger, speak to your king, the Lord of Kulaba, and say to him, let him put in his hand and contemplate a scepter that is not wood, nor designated as wood. Not ildag wood, nor chimgig wood, nor cedar wood, nor cypress wood, not hacker cypress nor palm wood, not hardwood nor zabulum wood. Not poplar as in a chariot, not reed work as in whip handles, not gold nor copper, not genuine Kumea metal nor silver, not cornelian nor lapis lazuli. Let him snap off a splinter from that and hold it in his hand. Let him hold it in his hand like a string of cornelian beads, a string of lapis lazuli beads. Let the Lord of Kulaba bring that before me. So say to him. After he had spoken to him thus, the messenger went off like a young donkey, braying as it is cut off from the chariot tongue. He trotted like an onager running on dry land. He filled his mouth with wind. He ran in one track, like a long-wooled sheep butting other sheep in its fury. He set foot joyfully in brick-built Kulaba. He transmitted the message word for word to his master, the Lord of Kulaba. Now Anki gave Enmerkar wisdom, and the Lord gave his instructions to his chief steward. In his house, lacuna, the king received, lacuna. He wrapped it up like lacuna, and inspected it. He pounded lacuna with a pestle like herbs. He poured it like oil on the lacuna reed. From the sunlight it emerged into the shade, and from the shade it emerged into the sunlight. After 5 years, 10 years had passed, he split the lacuna reed with an axe. The Lord looked at it, pleased, and poured on lacuna fine oil of the bright mountains. The Lord placed the scepter in the hands of the messenger going up to the mountains. The messenger, whose journeying to Aratta was like a pelican over the hills, like a fly over the ground, who darted through the mountains as swiftly as carp swim, reached Aratta. He set foot joyfully in the courtyard of Aratta, and put the scepter in lacuna. He, lacuna, and lacuna it. The Lord of Aratta, eyeing the scepter, which was lacuna, in the sanctuary, his holy dwelling, he, the Lord, called to his Katam official. Aratta is indeed like a slaughtered sheep. Its roads are indeed like those of the rebel lands. Since holy Inana has given the primacy of Aratta to the Lord of Kulaba, Now it seems that holy Inana is looking with favor on her man who has sent a messenger to make the severe message as clear as the light of Utu. So, in Aratta, where can one go in this crisis? How long before the yoke rope becomes bearable? As for us, in the direst hunger, in our direst famine, are we to prostrate ourselves before the lords of Kulaba? The lord of Aratta entrusted a message to the messenger, as if it were an important tablet. Messenger, speak to your master, the lord of Kulaba, and say to him, a champion who is not black-colored, a champion who is not white-colored, a champion who is not brown-colored, a champion who is not red-colored, a champion who is not yellow-colored, a champion who is not multicolored. Let him give you such a champion. My champion will compete against his champion, and let the more able one prevail. Say this to him. After he had spoken to him thus, the messenger set off. Ulum alam. In brick-built Kulaba he was speechless, like a lacuna. He gazed like a goat on the mountain slopes. He, lacuna, as if it were a huge mere snake coming out of a field. In lacuna he lifted his head, lacuna of Aratta. Lacuna, from his seat he addressed him like a raging torrent. Messenger, speak to the lord of Aratta and say to him, a garment that is not black-colored, a garment that is not white-colored, a garment that is not brown-colored, a garment that is not red-colored, a garment that is not yellow-colored, a garment that is not multicolored. I shall give him such a garment. My champion is embraced by Enlil. I shall send him such a champion. My champion will compete against his champion, and let the more able one prevail. Say this to him. Second, speak to him and say, let him immediately pass from subterfuge. Lacuna. In his city, let them go before him like sheep. Let him, like their shepherd, follow behind them. As he goes, let the mountain of bright lapis lazuli humble itself before him like a crushed reed, and let them heap up its shining gold and silver in the courtyard of Aratta for Inana, the lady of Inana. Third, speak to him and say, lest I make the people fly off from that city like a wild dove from its tree, lest I smash them like lacuna, lest I requite them as if at a current market rate, lest I make lacuna them walk in lacuna, when he goes, let them take the mountain stones, and rebuild for me the great shrine of Eridug, the Abzu, the Enun, let them adorn its architrave for me, let them make its protection spread over the land for me. His speaking, lacuna, recite his omen to him. At that time, the Lord lacuna. On the throne, daises, and on the chairs, the noble seed, lacuna. His speech was substantial, and its contents extensive. The messenger, whose mouth was heavy, was not able to repeat it. The messenger, whose mouth was tired, was not able to repeat it. The lord of Kulaba patted some clay, and wrote the message as if on a tablet. Formerly, the writing of messages on clay was not established. Now, under that sun, and on that day, it was indeed so. The lord of Kulaba inscribed the message like a tablet. It was just like that. The messenger was like a bird, flapping his wings. He raged forth like a wolf following a kid. He traversed 5 mountains, 6 mountains, 7 mountains. He lifted his eyes as he approached Aratta. He stepped joyfully into the courtyard of Aratta. He made known the authority of his king. Openly he spoke out the words in his heart. The messenger transmitted the message to the lord of Aratta. Your father, my master, has sent me to you. The lord of Anug, lord of Kulaba, has sent me to you. What is it to me your master has spoken? What is it to me, what he has said? This is what my master has spoken. This is what he has said. My king is like a huge mess tree. Lacuna, son of Enlil. This tree has grown high, uniting heaven and earth. Its crown reaches heaven. Its trunk is set upon the earth. He who is made to shine forth in lordship and kingship, Enmerkar, the son of Utu, has given me a clay tablet. O Lord of Aratta, after you have examined the clay tablet, after you have learned the contents of the message, say whatever you will say to me, and I shall announce that message in the shrine, Inana, as glad tidings to the scion of him with the glistening beard, whom his stalwart cow gave birth to in the mountains of the shining me, who was reared on the soil of Aratta, who was given suck at the udder of the good cow, who is suited for the office in Kulaba, the mountain of great me, to Enmerkar, the son of Utu. I shall repeat it in his jipar, fruitful as a flourishing mez tree, to my king, the lord of Kulaba. After he had spoken thus to him, the lord of Aratta received his kiln-fired tablet from the messenger. The lord of Aratta looked at the tablet. The transmitted message was just nails, and his brow expressed anger. The lord of Aratta looked at his kiln-fired tablet. At that moment, the lord worthy of the crown of lordship, the son of Enlil, the god Ikur, thundering in heaven and earth, caused a raging storm. A great lion in Lacuna, He was making the mountains quake, lacuna. He was convulsing the mountain range, lacuna. The awesome radiance, lacuna of his breast. He caused the mountain range to raise its voice in joy. On Aratta's parched flanks, in the midst of the mountains, wheat grew of its own accord, and chickpeas also grew of their own accord. They brought the wheat which grew of its own accord into the granary of lacuna for the lord of Aratta, and heaped it up before him in the courtyard of Aratta. The lord of Aratta looked at the wheat. The messenger's eyes looked askance, lacuna. The lord of Aratta called to the messenger. Inana, the lady of all the lands, has not yet run away from the primacy of her city, Aratta, nor has she stolen it for Unug. She has not run away from her Zagina, nor has she stolen it for the shrine Inana. She has not run away from the mountain of the shining me, nor has she stolen it for brick-built Kulaba. She has not run away from the adorned bed, nor has she stolen it for the shining bed. She has not run away from the purification of the Lord, nor has she stolen it for the Lord of Unug, the Lord of Kulaba. Inana, the lady of all the lands, has surrounded Aratta, on its right and left, for her like a rising flood. They are people whom she has separated from other people. They are people whom Dumuzid had made step forth from other people, who firmly established the holy words of Inana. Let the clever champion and the lacuna of Dumuzid whirl about. Quickly, come now, lacuna. After the flood had swept over, Inana, the lady of all the lands, from her great love of Dumuzid, has sprinkled the water of life upon those who had stood in the face of the flood and made the land subject to them. The clever champion, when he came, had covered his head with a colorful turban and wrapped himself in a garment of lion skins. 4 lines unclear. Inana, lacuna, her song was pleasing to her spouse, Ama Ukum Galana. Since that time she had made it perfect in the holy ear of Dumuzid has sung it and let the words be known. When the old woman came to the mountain of the shining me, she went up to him like a maiden who in her day is perfect, painted her eyes with kohl, wrapped herself in a white garment, came forth with the good crown like the moonlight. She arranged the lacuna on her head. She made Enmerkar, her spouse, occupy the throne dais with her. She raised up lacuna, and indeed for Aratta the ewes and the lambs now multiply. Indeed for Aratta the mother goats and their kids multiply. Indeed, for Aratta, the cows and their calves multiply. Indeed, for Aratta, the donkey, mares, and their black swift-footed foals multiply. In Aratta they say together, let them heap up and pile up for the grain piles. The abundance is truly your abundance. After having made lacuna for the lord of Aratta, let him lacuna. He will lacuna. He came forth lacuna. He set right for her. 3 lines missing. An unidentified person is speaking. Lacuna befitting lacuna, the Ilu song of the heart, lacuna, your abundance in his lacuna, Enlil has granted you lacuna, and may lacuna be made known, lacuna. His father was not luxuriantly fertile, and poured forth no semen. Enlil, king of all the lands, lacuna. In accordance with the tasks which he has now established, the people of Aratta, lacuna, their task of plying gold, silver, and lapis lazuli, the men who, lacuna, golden fruit trees, with their figs and grapes, shall heap the fruit up in great mounds, lacuna, and shall dig out the flawless lapis lazuli from the roots of the trees, and shall remove the succulent part of the reeds from the crowns of the trees, and then shall heap them up in a pile in the courtyard of Inana for Inana, the lady of Inana. Come, my king, I shall offer you advice. Let my counsel be heeded. I shall speak words to you. Let them be heard. Let the people choose a man, lacuna, of the foreign lands, and let the people of Aratta speak. Lacuna, when I go from here, the ever-sparkling lady gives me my kingship. Jektin Ana, lacuna, in that city, lacuna, festivals were not, lacuna, daily, lacuna, 6 lines missing. So yeah, that is Enmerkar and the Lord of Aratta. Very interesting text.